Good morning from Memphis. It is 12:54 a.m., about 5 minutes to 1, in the early morning hours of October 8th, 2022, and it's a fabulously beautiful fall night here. I'm outside in my favorite parking lot near my apartment complex. I'm so glad that they've not built anything here, that the people that own the whole property, including all these buildings, have not built anything. I'm just glad, and I'm glad this street light pole right here is not turned on. It never has been. That would be an obnoxiously bright orange light that would just ruin the whole setting for me. So I'm glad that it is the way it is. Anyway, in the night sky, of course, it's a beautiful clear fall night. We have a very interesting alignment. It's similar yet different for what we've been having. And starting over here, we've got the almost full moon. It's about 90+% full. They would call it, I guess, still a gibbous moon. It's almost full. And that's mighty Jupiter right next to it. It's always a cool comparison because Jupiter is the third brightest object in the night sky. We've got the moon, of course, then Venus, which is really only visible 2 to 3 hours before sunset, or before sunrise and after sunset. So it doesn't rule the entire night sky the way Jupiter does, which can be visible any time of the night. And it's the brightest object after Venus. So we've got the two brightest objects visible in the night sky at the present time, because Venus is below the horizon. It's actually almost on the other side of the sun right now, so it's not really even visible from Earth right now, or very difficult to see because it's on the other side of the sun. But Jupiter, of course, has 4 moons the size of ours or larger, along with 76 other smaller moons. So that's pretty cool. Saturn recently had 3 more discovered, so Saturn now leads the solar system in known moons with 83 known moons. Of course, there's probably more at Jupiter. We just have not discovered them yet, because Jupiter's sphere of influence, gravitational influence, is so wide that there's probably more moons within its sphere of influence that we just have not discovered yet. But be that as it may, we know of 80 known moons right now at Jupiter, 4 of which were discovered in 1610 as the first objects beyond Earth to be orbiting another celestial body, discovered by Galileo, the great Italian astronomer and physicist, in 1610. So 412 years ago. And those moons just have a lot of amazing science that we've done with those. But over here, we've got Mars, of course, but an interesting alignment. See, the planets, of course, tend to line up in very close to a straight line because they all orbit in the same plane. But now, because of Mars's motion among the stars, it's lined up in such a way that Aldebaran, which is just to the, let me zoom in a little bit more, see if we can pick that up. There's Mars again. Aldebaran is to the upper right of Mars. I'm just having a hard time picking it up right now. Let me zoom back out. Zoom all the way out. Bring Mars back in. And Aldebaran should be to the upper, slightly to the upper right, in line with Jupiter. There it is. Let's try to zoom in. Yeah, having a hard time picking up Aldebaran. It's almost as bright as Mars. It's reddish in the constellation Taurus the Bull. It's just, I guess with the light pollution, it's just not coming through. It's not bright as Mars. I'm having to zoom in to get Mars to come out. But be that as it may, Aldebaran, Jupiter, and Mars are lined up, which is very unusual for a relatively bright star to be lined up with the planets, two other planets, in that way. But over at Mars, we've got 2 moons orbiting Mars rather than 80 or 1. And those 2 moons are very close to the planet. And whenever we get to Mars, which hopefully we do sometime, hopefully within our lifetime, those who get to go will see 2 moons in the night sky rather than 1. So that'll be pretty cool. I'm going to try one more time to zoom in and get Aldebaran. There it is. Yep, it's just try to hold it right there and zoom in. There's Aldebaran. So that's Aldebaran. It's just must be the light pollution that's making it hard for me to zoom in and pick that up. But nevertheless, that's the bright bullseye in Taurus the Bull, bright red bullseye. I'll zoom back out, see if it stays visible. Just barely visible. And Mars is barely bright enough to be picked up by the cell phone. But be that as it may, it's a beautiful fall night. Early morning hours of October 8th, 2022. And back here at the moon, we can do a brief speed of light comparison. The moon is 1.4 light seconds away, 240,000 miles, roughly 1.4 light seconds. Jupiter is 45 light minutes. And comparing distances, Jupiter is 500 million miles from the sun and roughly the same distance from Earth. So we'll say it's actually slightly less than 500 million, about 490 million. But for math simplicity, we'll say 500 million. And the moon, 240,000. But to simplify the math, we'll say 250,000 miles. So times 4 is 1 million times 500. So that's 2,000. Jupiter's roughly 2,000 times farther from the Earth than the moon is. And over at Mars, roughly at its closest approach, 2 light minutes away at its closest approach. It's a little farther than that now, but it's going to be very close to that in a few. I don't have the tables memorized, but early next year Mars will be at its closest, about 35 million miles. And times 4, 140 times the distance from the roughly 140 times farther away than the moon. So that's pretty cool. Just a little bit of perspective on how far away things are, and that's roughly 2 light minutes. Very close to 2 light minutes. That's 140, roughly 140 times farther out than the moon. And just below Mars and Aldebaran, we can see Orion. Again, with the light pollution, I'm not sure it's going to come out. I'm going to zoom in, see if we can pick up the belt. Yeah, if it's visible, it's very pixelated, but Be that as it may, it is a beautiful fall night here in Memphis, and I thank you for watching.